Alright guys, we're back at it for a bit here. Got some body work done on the lower section here. Now I cut a plate out using a template. Now I'm just going to spot weld it in and then filler it up. Get rid of this side window here. So yeah. Alright, we got some kitty hair on there. Gonna give her a sand. Probably take like 90% of that off, but yeah, I'll sand that off and then we'll go to the smooth filler after, and that window should be gone. Alright guys, so we got the first layer of thin Bondo here. You can see some steel poking through, so she's on there pretty thin. So once I get that sanded and then a couple little licks here and there, there'll probably be one there, something dragged across it. So yeah, block it out and get her all flat and hopefully it disappears. Also, you can see I rounded out the bottom of this body line here a little bit. Get these like a bag of assorted ones. Different angles and stuff. Work really good for doing the corners and stuff like that, because when you're sanding it'll just chip away if you don't fill it in. And that way it'll have a nice smooth transition. Another trick too I use is like anywhere where there's big pits or anything, before I go to sand it, I'll take some hardener and a little fiberglass resin and then a little bit of Bondo, and I'll mix it up and just make my own kind of like a finishing putty, and then it'll fill any big pits or anywhere where I picked out something that was hard, or like, you know, anything that's kind of contaminating what the Bondo is, or just something that you know as soon as you sand it it's just gonna retain, like you're not gonna get to the bottom of it. So few little spots there that you just put a couple little groups of filler on and away she goes. And kind of got some drips of Bondo on the bottom here too. I'll have to sand that out, but she's coming along pretty good. Ain't the best body work, but what do you expect? She's like 100 years old, so I'll also put another lick up top there. This thing's pretty good too for doing, like, if you look over here you can see kind of where there's the spreader lines on there. If you take this thing here, kind of just rasp it off. Same with these ones down here for getting in the corner all tight. If you hit them with the rasp, you have just a lot of less sanding, and then that way it won't rip your paper or anything. And yeah, it's pretty good. You can also run it along edges for, I usually run it just along the edge here, just to knock off that ridge on the top here so I don't have to sand into there. Because you can kind of see over here where there's like wrinkles of Bondo in the corners. So I've rasped this top, but I haven't rasped over here yet. So you can kind of see there's a ridge up there and kind of like some ridges on the side. That thing, I'll just shave it right off. Especially on a corner too, I always want my Bondo back a bit, because then if something ever touches it or hits it, it has a potential to crack off. So if you can, I just leave like a little hair steel all the way around the edge, right? And that way it's less susceptible to cracking or chipping or anything. That's the biggest thing, is just like these body lines here. If you can't get close to them, just fill them in, blunt them right out. You're not going for a concourse restoration, so you might as well not make a bunch of work for yourself. Body line's still not centered either. It's still got the old Model A transmission in there, because it's holding the wishbone, so it has to go forward a little bit. I don't want to cut the firewall just in case I can drop that small block lower. So if your OCD's like mine, this kind of fender well line here is bugging you. But yeah. Yeah. I'll let that dry pretty good. I like this stuff to get pretty hard to do the final sanding. A lot of guys, they bond to it and then wait like an hour and then go at it, and it's nice and soft. I find if it's like rock hard, the next day it just comes off in very little amounts, right? So you can kind of really fine tune it. Hit it with a guide coat and then just block it. So this stuff, because how rough it is with the lines and everything, I'll just hit it with the 6-inch air sander, go over it really quick, knock everything right down, then I'll come back and I'll just block it all out level with a guide coat. That's what I did down here. There's a whole bunch of filler in here and here, like little, not deep, but just little spots of it everywhere. So yeah, and don't be afraid to make an absolute mess before it gets better. You just got to put the time in to chip away at it. There's no two ways about it. Doing something this old that's kind of like there isn't a straight panel on it, you're going to have to spot prime this thing 30 times to get it to lay the way you want it to, so you might as well just do it in chunks, right? And then I did this just because I'm too cheap to pay for a window. So, plus I kind of like the look of it sheeted in once it's all flat. And all right, guys, take her easy.